The PlayAction Podcast is fueled by Picasso's Pizza, where every night is pizza night.
The Buffalo Bills are preparing for their second of 3 preseason games this weekend in Pittsburgh, and we are going to assess where the position battles stand for this team on offense and defense. Just get ourselves rolling on the podcast this week. Katherine, today the Bills put Chase Claypool, who had his 15 minutes of fame in the spring with some good showings against backup cornerbacks. That went for naught, and he was put on injured reserve, and he is, for all intents and purposes, not going to be part of the Bills' plans. Where do you think that's not a huge shock? He hasn't been practicing very, very little before injuring his toe. But let's start with the wide receiver position. What do you think this means at wide receiver?
Yeah, I think they already had some questions going in just as far as how that was going to shake out with their depth at wide receiver. Claypool was going to be a little lower down the depth chart, so it's not like they lost their top guy or anything like that. But I think there's still opportunities for some other guys at the back end of the roster, particularly guys who got more reps with Claypool missing time. Matt Collins missed a little bit of time, but was back this week in practice, seeming refreshed. So I think there's still a lot to figure out there. What have you been watching?
Yeah, well, I think the dream scenario in June was that Claypool could be his very best self, an 80-catch guy. Not that he would catch 80, but he would be a very viable number 2 X receiver to Keon Coleman whenever Keon Coleman needs a break, or if Keon Coleman struggles as a rookie at all, you got Chase Claypool as a quote-unquote proven X wide receiver. Well, that's out the window. So the X wide receiver, it's Mac Hollins, is the first X wide receiver behind Coleman. And after that, it's Terrell Shavers. So, you got Coleman, Shakir, Samuel, Mac Hollins. Those are 4 stone cold locks. I consider MVS a near lock or a virtual lock. Maybe he would be a surprise cut. I don't see it. They gave him guaranteed money. Not a huge amount, $2.5 million or whatever. But so Shavers would be 6. KJ Hamler, he's still in the mix. What if Shakir gets hurt? Who plays the slot? I think they could easily just slide Curtis Samuel into the slot. So they don't necessarily need Hamler to keep Hamler. Plus, they could probably keep Hamler on the practice squad. The last thing before I give you my long-winded soliloquy here is kickoff returns. Hardy, the rookie, Daquan Hardy, is looking like their number 1 guy on punt returns and kickoff returns. But Hamler has been doing a lot on kickoff returns. Now, he muffed one against the Bears, but Hamler still has a chance.
Yeah, I think like you said, he's still in the mix there. They're giving him looks and everything. I think another position that's of interest is running back, just kind of who's going to be behind James Cook. The team got a boost this week with Ty Johnson returning to practice. I talked to him today, Tuesday, for a little bit just about how he's feeling. And he was talking about, how he was trying to keep up with the team during missing some time with that hamstring injury and what he learned and everything. So Josh Allen said how excited he is to have him back, how, his slightly different style brings something else to the team. But I think it's still kind of, James Cook, he's looked a little shaky a couple times during camp, which I think is some concern, but he's still going to be their number 1 guy. So it's just figuring out who's up after that.
Yeah, a few drops. Drops are going to be the thing to watch. He had one in today's practice. Yeah. I would say he's been mostly fine, but he's got to make that concern go away during the regular season. I love Ty Johnson. Great guy, solid pro. Cook, Johnson, Ray Davis. Reggie Gilliam. I think that's a lock. Ray Davis is a lock. I thought he catches the ball. He's caught the ball really well out of the backfield. He's had some good moments in pass protection for a rookie. And I think Frank Gore has had a good camp as an undrafted rookie. Frank Gore might win the undrafted rookie award in my book. So he's a big award. He's a lock for the practice squad, which then brings us to offensive line. And that competition is not as intense as I thought it was going to be.
How so?
I wrote a story for today's BuffaloNews.com on the rookie, Tylen Grable. He's who is their number 4 tackle. Ryan Vandermark is a lock at number 3 and really doesn't have anybody pushing him, which isn't the greatest situation. Tylen Grable, Richard Garage are fighting for number 4. It's kind of been Grable more than Garage. And I thought Grable looked okay. Pass protection, his weakness is run blocking. Stoutness has got to, give him a year on that regard. So that's the battle for number 4. Then the interior offensive line, SVP is a lock. The rookie, Van Pran Granger. And I think then the other backup interior offensive lineman is Alec Anderson over Lyle Collins. And that's 9 guys right there.
Yeah, I do want to touch on quarterback quickly. Not that there's any big battles there or anything, but the team did have to bring in Ben DiNucci after, they were a bit banged up at the position. Shane Buechele was out with a neck for an extended period of time. So brought in Ben DiNucci this week, and seems, he's had one day here, but they called him while he was golfing. So I think he's going to be a good fit for this Bills quarterback room.
And he is not related to 1970s pro wrestling legend Dominic DiNucci, for all of you out there. So, in fact, that wasn't Dominic DiNucci. DiNucci wasn't Dominic's real name. So it was a stage name. So just clear that up right away.
There's a lot going on with this defense, too, just between injuries, bringing in new guys, roster turnover. Let's start at safety, I think. Mark, yes. Biggest area of concern to me, you're nodding your head right now. Looks like you agree.
This was the colossal competition going into camp, and it has just fizzled to a total dud as far as competition goes. It's Taylor Rapp and Damar Hamlin are going to be starting, I think, in the opener. Mike Edwards, the free agent from Kansas City, has had almost no time on the field this whole offseason due to recovering from shoulder injury and his hamstring in training camp. That's, to me, the biggest disappointment. His injuries are the biggest disappointment of training camp in my eyes. And then Cole Bishop, the rookie, he has had a shoulder injury. Could they throw Cole Bishop out there to start week 2, Thursday night in Miami against Tyreek Hill on the road? No, I can't imagine. There's no way. Yeah. It's Rapp and Hamlin. And we'll see when Mike Edwards can get back. The slightly good news is both Bishop and Edwards were in walkthrough today for the first time, the little walkthrough portion in the middle of practice. So, Edwards is going to have a week of practice before the opener at best.
No, and I think especially when you just think about the communication at that position, it gets so much harder as well, just to not have had that time with the other guys on the field. What else interests you on the defense?
And just to add one more thing, they signed Kareem Jackson, 36-year-old, got over 100 starts, but he hasn't had any snaps with the ones to this point. If they were really worried, I think they would have been mixing about Rapp and Hamlin. They'd have been mixing him in. No, not at all. Number 2 cornerback battle, I think, has been a dud as well. It's been Christian Benford over Khair Elam. I think Kaiir Elam has looked better than last year. See what you think about that. I think looks like he's playing with more confidence, and he has got some reps, but starter, it's been Benford the whole way.
Yeah, I agree that Elam's looked more confident, and he's had some big plays during training camp. I remember the scrimmage had a couple of big plays. I think that's continued since then. So you see that confidence there and just kind of knowing he can make those plays. But like you said, he hasn't really played to the level of getting more out of the competition between him and Benford for number 2.
Right. Yeah, so then we go to the defensive line, and that's kind of the top 9 are pretty clear cut at defensive end. Von Miller, Rousseau, AJ Epinesa, Smoot, and the draft pick Solomon are the top 5. That leaves, I think Epinesa has been one of the stars of camp. That leaves Kingsley Jonathan, Casey Toohill, and Cameron Klein as the 6th. Casey Toohill's been hurt for weeks. At defensive tackle, the top 4 are set in stone. Oliver, Daquan, Dwayne Carter, and Austin Johnson, who I thought looked good against the Bears. That leaves Deshaun Williams as the 5th defensive tackle or the 9th defensive lineman. That would be a tough cut. He showed some good get-off against Chicago, Deshaun Williams. Deshaun Williams and Casey Toohill, if they were both cut as the 10th defensive lineman, those are 2 quality, pretty good NFL players who would get cut if they get cut.
I want to jump back to DeJuan Smoot on the defensive line. I think he had a really impressive camp. I did camp awards last week for a story for BuffaloNews.com, and he was my best newcomer, free agent, that is.
Yeah.
I think he's really impressed during camp, and kind of quietly so, but has really made some big plays and just gotten in the mix there. And, so pleasant to get to know. So I think the rest of this locker room's really going to enjoy him.
Agree with that. Yeah, agree with that wholeheartedly. Then at linebacker, you got the top 4. Milano tweaked his arm in practice today. We'll see, but he stayed on the field the whole practice, which leads me to believe it wasn't something major. Milano, Bernard. Balin Spector deserves credit for rising up, and he looks like a lock as the primary backup to Terrell Bernard. As the number 2 Mike, Dorian Williams is a lock. The 5th-round pick rookie Eddie Olafascio hasn't practiced, but I have a hard time believing they'd cut a 5th-round pick. That leaves the 2 veterans, Deion Jones, who did okay in the preseason game, and Nick Morrow. I mean, can one of them stick as a 6th linebacker? That's a good question. Okay, let's take a quick look ahead to this weekend. The Bills are in Pittsburgh for a joint practice with the Steelers, then play Saturday night in Pittsburgh, preseason game number 2. Understanding, of course, as all our smart fans listening know, that preseason football is the biggest fraud perpetrated on the sporting public in any sport in America. Katherine, how much Josh Allen do you need to see over the last 2 preseason games?
Yeah, it's such a tough balance because you do not want him to get injured. He doesn't really need much in a vacuum to still work on, but he needs that rapport with his receivers, I think, especially to keep building that chemistry there with live reps. So I think I still want to see like a little touch of Josh Allen, but not a ton by any means.
He did play, somewhat oddly, the 3rd preseason game last year.
Mm-hmm.
Which a lot of teams hold out or used to hold out their starters in the 3rd, but now there's a little more gap between the 3rd and the regular season. 1 series for Josh Allen in the last 2 exhibitions are fine with me. Pittsburgh is a physical team on the lines of scrimmage. I look more at like individual one-on-one reps. How did the offensive tackle look in pass protection? If they're playing man coverage, how did the running back or the cornerback or the wide receiver look? I don't really care. Couldn't care less about the result, but I'd like to see some just resetting the line of scrimmage, holding the line of scrimmage on defense? How do they look in terms of matching up physically with Pittsburgh's offensive and defensive lines? Pittsburgh's got a very good defensive front. Who knows how long they'll play, but Larry Ogunjobi, Keanu Benton, Cam Hayward, TJ Watt as 4 down linemen are really, really formidable. So that'll be a good test for the Bills' offensive line.
Yeah, I think overall on the Bills, you just want to see a little more fire out of the team. They came out a little flat this past game against the Bears, and I think just kind of, Sean McDermott, Josh Allen, multiple people said how it wasn't quite up to their standard, not because of the result, but because of the performance, if that makes sense. But, I think that starts on the line of scrimmage, like you were mentioning, of you want to see kind of in the trenches, that fire there. And so I think that's something I'm going to be watching for. And I think the joint practice, having that in advance, will kind of kick that up a notch of just the level of competition.
It's interesting, there are some parallels between this Pittsburgh offense in that they got 2 good running backs, Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, and then Justin Fields, depending on how long he plays, is a really more mobile quarterback. Somewhat similar, Arizona, week 1 opponent, really can run the ball and has, a extremely mobile starting quarterback. So, but whatever the Bills' plan is for the Cardinals, we're not going to see any of that against Pittsburgh in terms of spying or any other creative run defense. But just seeing them try to be stout at the front. That'll be something to watch.
Yeah, like you said, preseason is kind of hard to glean too much from in some cases, but we will be there getting as many takeaways as we can. We'll be back next week as well on the podcast, so make sure you're subscribing wherever you listen and then reading along at buffalonews.com for all of our coverage, both from Orchard Park and from Pittsburgh.
Treat your team to the most flavorful pizza on game day at Picasso's Pizza. 4 great Western New York locations: Williamsville, West Seneca, Lancaster, and Blaisdell. Picasso's. We are Buffalo's Pizza since 1980. Order online today at picassospizza.net.